Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're talking about something big. We're breaking down the unspoken price of starting over. You know, that moment when you just decide, that's it, I'm hitting reset. And then all the unexpected battles that come right after.
I mean, we've all thought about it, right? Just packing it all in for a new city, a new career, a completely new life. But what happens after the daydreams and the excitement? What's the real cost, emotionally, practically, of starting from square one? All right, let's get into it. Yeah, because what our source material makes super clear is that this isn't just one single challenge you have to overcome. Nope. It's more like a war on multiple fronts. You're fighting logistical nightmares, a huge social void, and, let's be honest, the toughest opponent out there is usually yourself.
Okay, so let's kick things off with the stuff you can actually see and count. You know, the practical hurdles. The things that, quite frankly, you're probably going to lose a little sleep over. This is really the foundation of all the stress. Because before you can even get into the big philosophical questions like, who do I want to be, you have to deal with the basics. Where am I going to live, and how am I going to pay for it? And that foundation, well, it can feel incredibly fragile when you're just getting started.
So, how tough are we actually talking here? Well, our source gives the whole financial risk thing a difficulty rating of 8 out of 10. I mean, that is huge. It just goes to show how intense that pressure can be right from day one.
And this really lays out the central conflict, doesn't it? On one side, you've got this constant, gnawing fear of watching your bank account drain to zero. But on the other side, there is a way through. The key, according to our source, is having the right tools. Things like careful budgeting, making a realistic plan, simple stuff like choosing rent you can actually afford. That's how you walk that financial tightrope without falling off.
All right, so let's say you've got a roof over your head. You've handled the money stuff for now, but then a totally new and maybe even deeper challenge pops up. We're going to shift from the practical to the personal now and talk about the huge challenge of human connection. And wow, this quote from the source material just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that weird, sinking feeling of being in a brand new city, surrounded by tons of people, but still feeling completely and totally alone. Why? Because nobody else is living your story. Nobody else really gets it.
And look at that, there's that number again, an 8 out of 10 for facing solitude. That tells you everything, right? The emotional weight of being lonely is seen as just as heavy as the practical weight of worrying about money.
So our source calls this the solitude paradox. And it makes a lot of sense. On one hand, having no support system feels, well, terrifying. But here's the manageable side of it. And this is a really powerful reminder. You've probably done this before. Think about it. Moving for college, traveling by yourself. You already have the skills. You know deep down that these connections don't happen overnight. They're built over time.
Okay, now we're getting to the real heart of it all. We talked about money, we've talked about making friends, but the source material suggests that the biggest challenges, the ones with the highest difficulty ratings, are the ones you can't even see. They're the battles happening inside your own head.
And this is just fascinating, isn't it? It turns out the biggest hurdle isn't finding a new job, it's finding yourself. All over again. The hardest part seems to be letting go of the person you were so you can make room for the person you're becoming.
And just look at that score, a 9 out of 10. That is the highest difficulty rating we have seen yet. I mean, redefining your entire sense of self, that is absolutely the final boss battle when it comes to starting over.
So think about it like this. Maybe your whole identity was wrapped up in being a world traveler or a digital nomad. Well, deciding to settle down can feel like you're betraying that person. But the way to manage this isn't to see it as a loss. It's about redirection. It's about taking that exact same adventurous spirit and just aiming it at something new, something just as meaningful, like building a home or starting a family.
Now, the source material brings up another really important layer here. For anyone who's neurodivergent, with conditions like ADHD, these internal battles can feel even bigger, even more magnified. You've got this intense drive to achieve all your new goals, but it's in a constant tug of war with the very real need to manage your energy and just not burn out.
And what's so interesting here is how you can see all these internal struggles are connected. Look at this. Balancing that ambition with self-care, that's a 9 out of 10. Overcoming that gut instinct to just run away when things get tough, also a 9. And then wedged right in the middle is imposter syndrome, that little voice telling you you're a fraud in this new life. You can see how they all just feed off each other.
And of course, underneath all of this is that big, universal fear of failure.
That nagging question, what if this doesn't work out? What if I made a terrible mistake? It can be completely paralyzing. But here's the powerful mindset shift the source offers. What if failure isn't the end? What if it's just data? Just pure information that you can use to adjust your path and actually grow from.
So, with all of these challenges piling up, practical, social, internal, how in the world do you find your way forward? Well, the point isn't to find a pre-made map. It's about building yourself a brand new compass.
And here it is. This is your new compass, a 4-point framework for the journey. First, reframe failure as data. We just talked about that. Second, define success on your own terms, not what your parents or society think it should be. Third, find the adventure and stability. This one's huge. And finally, number 4, figure out how to balance that deep-seated need for freedom with the responsibilities you're now choosing for yourself.
And that last point is so important. It's all about redefining what freedom even means. It's no longer about freedom from a job or from a commitment. Instead, it becomes the freedom to choose your commitments. The freedom to intentionally build a future that actually fits the person you are today, not the person you were 5 years ago. When you really boil it all down, the whole thing comes back to this one fundamental shift in perspective. See, if you're only focused on the destination, that perfect job, that perfect house, you're going to miss the entire point. The real growth, the real life, is what happens on the journey itself.
And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. Starting over isn't just about all the new things you gain. It's also about what you're willing to let go of. So the question for you is, what's that old dream you might need to release to make space for whatever comes next?